We have been talking about triggers, and this week we're pretty excited because we're going to tell you how to know if someone's triggered because there's a secret to this, and it's called physical manifestations. And you may be wondering, what on earth is a physical manifestation? That's a mouthful. So don't worry, because we're going to show you today and explain this so that when you look at triggers and all the time you've seen triggers and didn't know what they were, but you knew it was something and didn't know how to handle it, you'll have some more knowledge on that. So one of the key abilities needed in order to master triggers is being able to know what's going on with the other person, notice when there's a physical manifestation, and then knowing how to handle it. And if you can become a master of that, oh my gosh, your value as a friend, as a life coach, just as a partner in business, in relationships, and with your kids, I mean, it just goes up, in my opinion, by millions of dollars. I know that sounds extreme, but I really do think it's that ability is like worth ounces of gold. And I'm sure Raul would agree with me on that. Would you?
Oh, I mean, definitely. I would say especially when you're coaching or
Yes.
in a coaching type of situation, just knowing and actually being able to observe a physical manifestation is
Yeah.
actually the key. I mean, just the key to really handle triggers in an optimum way. So yes, I mean, I would say that it really makes a difference, especially in coaching, but in relationships too, right?
Totally. So before we go any further, if you would kindly type in live, if you're watching this live in the comments section, we would so appreciate it. And if you're not watching this live, just type in replay. Okay, so what I've observed is there's usually a few frustrations that people experience in life in everyday conversations, whether you're in a coaching situation as a life coach or whether you're just living life daily. So, have you ever noticed or observed someone that's triggered in a situation or a circumstance and nobody says anything, including yourself? I mean, literally, nobody says anything or they do anything. And you know something's not right. And you know that there's a trigger. Maybe you can't put a word to it or articulate what exactly is happening. But that can be very frustrating. When I first learned this technique, oh my goodness, it's like my whole life flashed before my eyes, and I was like, oh, the number of times I've seen this happen and didn't do anything. A lot of it is just because I didn't know how to do anything, and the times I tried to do something, I failed miserably and seemed to make the situation worse. The other things that I've observed is being frustrated with yourself, which kind of goes along with what I just said. When you see the obvious and you don't handle it, or maybe you handle it incorrectly, but basically seeing the obvious and not confronting it, which, that happens to all of us, right? And then the last thing would be, I would ask, have you ever felt like within yourself, maybe you've seen it in others, where there's a misalignment between yourself, your mind, and your body? It's kind of like a lot of times we know things in our heart. It's like we just know in our core, but our mind is saying something else. It's totally out of line with what we feel or know to be true. And that really causes, that's really a physical manifestation, something that needs to be inspected. So, as a life coach, or just as a really successful person who has great relationships, you want to be able to coach or just have conversations with the person in front of you. And if they're triggered, or if you see a physical manifestation, which is Raul's fixing to tell us what on earth is this thing, this mystery thing, that you're able to coach the person effectively and help them. You can ask the right question. You'll know what's going on with them without a shadow of a doubt, because that puts you in a very powerful position. And sometimes physical manifestations, oh my goodness, they can be so subtle and not as obvious. But then and when you look back, it's like they're glaring at you like the sun, right? But you didn't see it at the time. So, Raul, why don't you tell us what's the mystery? What's this mystery word about physical manifestation so that we can be on the same page?
Yeah, that'd be great. So thank you, Sil. And so before we jump into that, the one thing that I want to share with everybody is that we're going to do this in 2 steps. Okay, so in this recording or in this Facebook Live, we're going to share first. So what is a physical manifestation? And then for you to be able to spot them, notice them, and observe them. Okay, and then next week we'll share a little bit more what to do after, but we're going to do this like gradiently, step 1. So with that said, what is a physical manifestation? It is basically a physical manifestation is basically a stop between you, your mind, and your body. That is a physical manifestation, a stop between you, your mind, and your body. Now, why that's important? Because that means it's trapping some of your attention. And just think it like this. If you're trying to get something in life, if you're trying to achieve something, right? It could be a goal, it could be your dreams and aspirations, whatever you're trying to achieve, right? You really want to go like full speed on it, don't you? I mean, you really, you want it now, right? I mean, if it's your dreams and aspirations, you want it now. But if there's something there, a stop between you, your mind, and your body, just think it's almost like, yes, you could be making some progress, but probably like with the brakes on. So you don't want that. You really want to observe that, notice that, first step, and then you want to handle that, but that's going to come later. But that's the first thing, right? So that's basically a physical manifestation. Something that I love that Sil just mentioned is obviously there's different kinds of physical manifestations. You could have some of those that are quite obvious, and then there's other ones that are not that obvious. But let's start with the first set. So how does a physical manifestation looks? Okay, so let me just show that. Let me just share my screen here very quickly. We
This
actually
is so
created
great.
some cartoons, right, Sil?
Yeah, love them.
Just to give you, so this would be like a physical manifestation. And this is really important. If you're in conversation and if you're in coaching session, and then suddenly your client starts to yawn, right? Or sneezing, right? Or sometimes, I mean, this happens quite a lot sometimes in coaching sessions. I mean, you're handling something, right? And then cough, right? Or whatever the thing is. I mean, that is a physical manifestation. Something got triggered, right? It's a stop between you, your mind, and your body. I mean, other examples would be, stumbling, right? Even when the mood level changes, right? Or drops. I mean, this would be like quite obvious. I will share with you other examples that are not that obvious. But the first step is just to know what a physical manifestation is, and then to be able to see them, to spot them. Now, before I give you other examples, Sil, anything you would like to share on this, and what happens sometimes in conversations or in session with this physical manifestation?
Well, I think about yawning, because I know probably people really, really misperceive this, labeling it incorrectly, because you can sit down, not even be around someone, and sit down and be reading a fantastic book or watching a movie and yawn and start to feel tired and think that you're sleepy. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, 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 no. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We're not sleepy. If you're reading a book, you've probably gone by a word you don't understand, or either what you just read is triggering something from the past, or that's come into present time. And same thing with watching a movie, but a lot of times people will just put that in the column of just really tired and need to take a nap, and I think about, I must have yawned 5 million times in school because I didn't understand anything. It's just miscomprehension. So yawning doesn't mean, a lot of times it's misinterpreted as being bored. No, or some, yeah. So that's the thing that comes to mind when I see someone yawning. Yeah.
I love it. It's something got triggered.
That's right. That's right.
Love it. So then, so very important, right? So at this point, we know what a physical manifestation is. We have some idea of some examples of obvious physical manifestations, but then the other thing is very, very important to be able to notice them. And to do that, sometimes a physical manifestation is not that obvious. So let me give you some examples like that. For example, lateness, right? Like not arriving on time.
Yeah.
Not starting things on time. That is a physical manifestation. Okay. Poor memory, like not remembering stuff. That is a physical manifestation too. And then the other one, and Sil will share with you just a very powerful story of handling successfully physical manifestations. The other example, and Sil will tell you more about this, it's failing in something. Like if you're trying to do something and you can't, and you're just failing on that, whatever that is. It could be in sports, it could be in school, it could be in business, right? It could be in relationships, like failing in whatever that you're trying to get or achieve. That is a major physical manifestation. Okay. So don't think that it's just, like coughing, sneezing, which it is. But sometimes you have to put attention also in those subtle physical manifestations, because sometimes when you handle those, I mean, that's life-changing. Wouldn't you say that, Sil?
Yeah, totally life-changing. I think about, I was thinking about someone in a conversation, and when you perceive and you can feel they're not there, that's what I was thinking when you mentioned that. Not there, but if you weren't present, you wouldn't be able to tell that they're not there. But that is a physical manifestation when their attention is tied up somewhere else. And even if they're looking at you in the eyes, if you're present, you can feel they're not there. So if you don't do something about that, the conversation is going to be in such a lull. You know what I mean? It's just like, why? I was thinking about going to lunch with the sales rep one time, and that happened before we even got sit down to the table. So I just stopped and I said, is your attention on something? And then he proceeded to tell me, because I thought, I'm going to spend an hour and 15 minutes with this guy, and he's not there. So I let him tell me and kind of get all that stuff out of his face. Then he was with me. It was a great lunch. It was business lunch, So, yeah, physical manifestations. So was there anything else you wanted to say on physical manifestations?
No, not really, Sil. I'm really, what I was sharing before is just, I think that they're going to love, just how powerful this is. And Sil will share with you just a really great example of handling this successfully.
So I'm glad you brought up about failing, because even though the person's not sneezing or whatever, failing in something is a physical manifestation. They are not winning and not getting what they want. So we had a client, this was a while back, and he had a son that was about 5 or 6 years old. So he hadn't been in school long, right? Maybe probably kindergarten and then first grade. So he was failing miserably in school. And I remember them saying that just based on his behavior and his incapacity to learn and grasp and comprehend stuff, they were even wondering if he was a special needs kid. Just horrible projections, special needs, or maybe, like really, really something wrong mentally with his capacity to process and understand what he was learning. So this client's significant other basically sat down with the child because she was trained to do some of the techniques that we use. And she wanted to spend time with him to see if she could help him. And so she used a very special technique, and she kind of watered it down a little bit so that he could understand it. And she just kind of found out what was going on, because this kid not only excuse me, wasn't passing his tests, he wasn't doing his homework, so just failing in all the little aspects of it. So she asked the child, what happens if you don't do something? And the child simply stated, well, I don't pass and I'm wrong forever. I mean, that's a pretty crazy thought. I mean, it's a pretty, I just look at how that would set you up to keep failing, right? It's a horrible negative process. So she asked the child, well, what does this mean? He just said, well, if I don't pass, I'm no good. Because he had attached his goodness and his self-worth to passing or failing. So she asked the child a couple more questions, and then she got the consequences. And then when that kid went back to school, he started to do better. The second thing she did was she sat down and she did what we call a special exercise to help a child increase his focus and concentration, which is also being able to be here in the moment, being present. And she practiced with him. She started off with a few seconds, and then she increased and got up to a minute. She did this over a series of months because she wanted, first of all, the child to agree to do it, which he was very keen to do it. And she did it on the right gradient for the child. Why? So he could win. And so this kid, and they got up to an hour of no talking and focusing and concentrating. And so this kid went from being the absolute worst child in the class and also making the label that had been put on him that perhaps he had a disability and was a special needs kid, to being the best in the class. And this kid, you're going to be blown away. This kid actually went to a major university, like prominent, well-known university, and graduated with a PhD. I mean, and I think about, if he had been labeled with that disability, but they picked up on the physical manifestation. The parents were aware and had enough forethought to sit down and handle the triggers and ask the right questions and work with him. He got a freaking PhD, and he's, in his field of study. So that's a great success story to physical manifestations that were so blatant, failing, and handling them. So enjoy your week, life coaches, and start noticing physical manifestations and what you can do about them. Thank you.